a community, a beautiful single-family residential community. He's had this since the early 1980s, paid taxes on it, whatever, and this was going to be his nest egg. They found, his property has the potential to be the nesting site for a tiger salamander. Potential! And because of that, there's a 3-to-1 mitigation. 2/3 of his property they want him to endow it through an easement to some group. I think it's the Wildlands Inc. And then he has to pay for them to maintain it in perpetuity in order to get his project approved. This is what's happening. And these easements, some of these people may get $1 million or whatever they're getting in the short term, but I'm telling you, you violate that easement. You've now signed over and basically said they can come on your property anytime, and they will. And you are now subservient to them as a master on your deed and title. And they will come on your property and they will find problems. And then they will take your property from you. And if you don't pay your property taxes, they can then take the property. There's all kinds of problems with this, so be very, very careful with that. I'm going off on tangents here. The point is, getting back to our kids, we can't get to any of our resources, but this is what they're scaring our kids with, these books that they have, that they're showing them that, we're terrible people, we're decimating our logging, our farms, our environment, when in fact, we're forced to buy a lot of our resources from other countries. We can't do it here, but it's okay if we import it, pay more, and they can do it there, right? All of our drilling, what happened when they blew up, when the platform, oil rig platform blew up in the Gulf? What did they do?
Closed down.
24/7 with a terrorist camera down there, scaring these psychological people, us to death with this oil spill, right? Or, leaking out 24/7 so that they could convince us that we don't need, it's too dangerous to drill in 20,000 feet or whatever. So instead they take the oil rigs, send them to Brazil where they're doing the exact same thing, and they spend hundreds of billions of dollars, and now we are one of Petrobras, Brazil's biggest customers. And they can't get permits down there to drill. We can't drill in our own backyard. We've got tons of oil fields that are not 20,000 feet under the water, but we can't get to it. Why? Because they don't want us to.
That was a jihad.
Yeah.
That was a jihad.
It was planned. I think it was planned. I think it was planned. I really do. And I don't put things past my government anymore. There are things that when you start looking at the big picture, there's something going on that they're planning, or something happens and they take advantage of it, like this whole Jim Holmes thing or whatever, and spin it into a United Nations small arms treaty. That's why we all need to give up our guns, that kind of thing. But either way, now this is really disturbing right here, because this is a picture of, stack and pack housing down below. Lots of cars, congestion, smog, and there's lots of babies, and God is kind of, a little bit stressed out. And on the opposite page, and mind you, this is a children's book, the opposite page, you can't read this, but it says, the planet groans every time it registers another birth. The planet groans. The planet groans every time it registers another birth. So, anyway, that's what they're teaching our kids. And our kids, you ask a kid these days whether they're a free individual American or a global citizen, and they'll tell you they're a global citizen. They no longer understand what our founding fathers fought and died for. They no longer understand. They will when they end up giving up all of their rights for the greater cause and the community. They will find out that they don't have any rights at all. So when you see the 3 interlocking circles, that is an indication that you are looking at the United Nations Agenda 21 symbol. Okay, economy. stands for the replacement of our free capitalist markets to create private-public partnerships instead with benefit corporations. Basically, you know, this is how they're going to get corporations to go along with this. You know, they'll give them special, you know, access. They'll, you know, like the stack and pack housing. A lot of the developers that I know don't want to go along do this. But I mean, they want to feed their folks. They want to, you know, have jobs. And if somebody's dangling billions of dollars over your head and saying, this is the project we need you to build, it's hard to say no. And then what happens is then they require them to use what are called PLAs, project labor agreements, which means basically they have to use union labor in a lot of cases. So then the unions are on board. And then they all, you know, it's just this vicious cycle. We are funding our own demise. And it's very difficult to get out of it. And they know that. It's designed that way. Now, equity is all about social justice, environmental justice. It's all about the color of your skin. I don't know about you, but when I grew up, it was all about equal justice. Justice is supposed to be blind. We're taught not to look at the color of somebody's skin, not to look at race, color, religion, sex, and any of that. And now all of a sudden, all the legislation is about social justice. And this is all in order to redistribute the wealth. That's what they're calling it. And Proposition 31, please tell everybody you know, Proposition 31, vote no. Because Proposition 31 is going to be on the ballot this November, calls for they wrote it up and gave it a great title, and the title is the Performance and Accountability, Government Performance and Accountability Act. So if you vote against it, you're voting against performance and accountability in our government. If you read the bill, the proposition, it calls for an amendment to our California Constitution, which to me, when I hear something like that, is immediately ding, 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 ding. Red alarms start going off. Why are we amending our Constitution? Well, they want to amend the Constitution to create a strategic council to oversee the rest of our government in California. So our government is so bad right now, they want to add more government. And they want to institutionalize the 3 E's. So they're going to rate this council that they're going to create, which is unconstitutional, which is why they need to amend our Constitution, is going to then be charged with rating the performance and accountability of all facets of our government statewide and comparing them to these 3 E's. And if that proposition goes through, we now have a constitution that says, well, you're going to do this. So there will be no way of stopping it. So social justice, you guys have probably hear about that a lot at this point. Environment, of course, everything's about the environment, right? They're going to, you know, tax us for your carbon credit emissions. They're going to inventory everything, your farm animals, and you know how much you bake at home, and your smart meters are going to keep track of everything you do in your house. And eventually, you know, they're going to tax us for everything. It's going to be a carbon credit trading scheme, and we are going to be simply taxed for living. Think globally, act locally, that's their motto. ICLEI, the International Council on Local and Environmental Initiatives, is the biggest NGO that is pushing all of this at the local level. If your city council is part of ICLEI and they're doing a climate action plan or whatever, you need to kick ICLEI out. It's not just good enough to kick ICLEI out. You've got to get rid of all of the wording and verbiage in your general plan updates and all of that for sustainable development, smart growth, the 3 E's, and you know you have to scrub it. So you really have to make sure that that's taken care of. And if you go on ICLEI's site, it says Agenda 21. I have a 1997 tax return from ICLEI that shows how much money they spent on their local Agenda 21 campaign. So when people tell me, oh, you know, it doesn't exist, you know, you don't know what you're talking about and all that, then I get out my binder. I carry this binder everywhere, and I have little plastic sheets, and when I find articles or things that I want to use and share, I put them in here, and so that I can do kind of a show and tell, and I carry it everywhere I go. And I use this as a learning tool because it's easier to show somebody something than it is to try to explain, you know, all of this. And here's ICLEI's 1997 tax return, and right here it says Local Agenda 21 campaign. So facts. And then here's a Local Agenda 21 planning guide put out by ICLEI. Fact. That's theirs. And here's my ABAG, the Association of Bay Area Governments, signed on to a compact for a sustainable Bay Area in 1997, and it states right here, and this is off of their website, that they adopted the definition of sustainable development endorsed by the United Nations World Commission on Environment and Development. This is the kind of stuff that I take to their meetings. When they laugh at me when I'm standing there because I said Agenda 21 or 16, and they like to make fun of us. I said, well, gee, I got this off of your website. And they're not laughing anymore. A couple of years ago, you know, we weren't talking about this. People didn't want to hear about this. Now I can't stop talking about it, and more people are talking about it. It's on the radio. It's everywhere. I have Google searches. I have these Google searches, so whenever Agenda 21 is mentioned, or ICLEI, or you know, any of the Step 1 Bay Area, I automatically get alerts, and every day I get a summary of these alerts, and every day the list gets longer and longer and longer. This is a worldwide conversation, and it's the truth, and we have to keep talking about it. You know, I'm of the opinion that, you know, not knowing doesn't mean you're not going to get run over by the train that's coming down the line. You know, my mother thinks that denial is not just a river in Egypt. It's a way of life. And so, you know, there's certain people that you're not going to wake up because they don't want to wake up. They're part of the matrix. They can't handle the truth. You know, it's just because, you know, once you are awake and aware, you can't go back. You know, and it's a burden. But you know, I'm of the camp that, look, you know what? When there's bad news, I'd rather just rip the Band-Aid off, give it to me straight, tell me all of it, because at least then I know what I'm dealing with. Not knowing is worse, because then my mind goes crazy about all the bad things that could happen. To me, it's far worse. You know, for some people, they don't want to know. But you know, knowing, for me, maybe I can do something. Maybe by knowing when things really get bad, I can grab somebody where I can save them too. But that's the thing, is we have to keep talking about it. Don't stop talking about it. And talk to your city council people, talk to your supervisors, talk to any of these. We have to educate them because they are being duped into implementing this stuff. And I say they because not all of them know what's going on. They really don't. And one of the effective things that I do is I call up and I say, you know, I'd like to have coffee with you or whatever and talk to you. And you'd be surprised. I mean, I get 2.5 hours with a city council person, a mayor, a supervisor, an assembly person, whatever, and I sit down and I open up the book and I start talking about exactly what I'm talking about to you, and I lay out the truth. And that's all we can do. And you connect a few more dots for them. And it's surprising. We need to educate them as well. We need to get behind them and help them push back, because a lot of these people have the ability to push back, but they don't know we're behind them. They don't know what they're fighting. And if they don't know what they're fighting, they can't fight. You know, it's not about the individual bike path or the one deal, you know, the widening of the road or the narrowing of the road or the roundabouts, or, you know, but see, that's the thing. Those are the arguments they want us looking at. They want us looking at that one argument when we should be looking at the bigger picture and connecting the dots and going, hey, there's a mothership. Okay? That's when you know how to fight. So we need to do that for them as well. And then, you know, there's a few. I've got, you know, a supervisor now and a guy on ABAG who neither one of them are really conservatives. You know, they voted for climate action plans. I mean, you know, that side of the hill, you know, there's really no conservatives over there. I don't care what they say. Jesus. But they call themselves Republicans, so, you know, and they want my vote, and I'm a Tea Party person, so I make them run them through the coals, you know, and then, you know, and then I put them, I drip feed them, well, not really, but I force feed them stuff like, you know, this 1992 video of Nancy Pelosi on the floor of Congress voting on HR 353, where they said Agenda 21 like 40 times.
And then they denied
I'm sorry, I'm not crazy. There's Congress talking about it. It's a C-SPAN video from 1992, and they're voting on HR 353. If you don't have this video, it's very powerful, because when you're talking to an official and they tell you you're a net, you know, send them the video of Nancy Pelosi making the charge. And I think she had a lot of plastic surgery because she's really young back then. But anyway, as a side note. It's HR 353. Google Nancy Pelosi, Agenda 21, C-SPAN, HR 353. But that's the kind of stuff you send to them. Proof. Proof. These are not my words. You know, you need to just start drip feeding them information. Go sit down with them. Make them listen. If they want your vote, they better understand what's going on. This is where we're headed. They're trying to get rid of our local city councils, counties, and go to mega regions. Cascadia is the northeastern or the northwestern region. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, I think 11 mega regions. This is Soviet-style government. This is on America2050.org. You can go check it out. This is what they have planned for us. These are going to be our mega region human settlements. And those mega regions then are going to need high-speed rail, which is why they're pushing for all of this to get us around, because of course we're not going to have cars anymore. Because in 2050 their plan is to reduce, especially in California, they've already said, the plan in 2050 is to reduce our carbon emissions by 80% of 1990 levels. Now in 1990, and I called CARB to find out what the actual 1990 levels were that were being measured against. In 1990, the levels were 427 million metric tons of carbon, of GHGs, CO2. Of GHGs is greenhouse gases. And in the year 2020, we're supposed to be at, I think, we're supposed to be at 1990 levels. So in 2020, we're supposed to go back to 1990 levels, okay? At 2050, we're supposed to be at 80% of 1990 levels. So 60-year difference, millions more people, they said, and we're going to go back to what it was in 1990 levels. And I asked this guy, is that even possible? And he said, I don't think so. Not without completely socially re-engineering our lives. Everything's going to have to change. And I said, so what is this going to cost? And he laughed. And I said, why are you laughing? He goes, because that wasn't part of the study. Of course not. But this is what they have planned for us. They want our cars. They're going to take our cars. I don't know if you guys know, but they're voting on charging us per mile.
Yep.
VMTs, a tax for driving your car for every mile. I think it was 10 cents. Somebody said it was 1. I think they said 10, but anyway, I think it's political suicide for anybody who votes for that.
They're trying to pass it right now.
No, I know. The ABAG board voted to approve the study. I'm like, really? They're taking our bridge toll money. This ABAG and MTC is our Metropolitan Transportation Commission, who collects all the bridge toll money. And these are the same people that think we should, you know, live in stack and pack housing next to mass transit, and you know, we should all be paying extra for driving our cars and this and that. And they just took $179 million of our bridge toll money, and they're buying themselves a new building in San Francisco. These COGS and regional bodies are out of control. Number one, they're unconstitutional. Okay. Yep. The only and she's right. What's yours called?
Council of Governments, San Joaquin Council of Governments, SJCOG.
SJCOG is voluntary. Okay. And I didn't know this at first. I mean, they don't tell you any of this stuff. These bodies are formed. These agencies are formed, layered upon and over your local jurisdictions for a reason. Yep. They are unelected to that position. Now, they are elected people appointed to a made-up agency and board and body, but they're not elected. We didn't elect these people on a ballot to do this job. Why? Because it's unconstitutional. It doesn't exist. And regional government is Soviet-style communism, and we need to get rid of it. Do not let your regional cog take root and take hold.
Well, they
you
already
must
are.
abolish it. You must get your local city councils, and because what's happening is at the regional level, the regional cogs make the decisions. The money is getting handed down from federal grants, state level
Yep.
redevelopment, whatever, because all the local redevelopment money that we had, remember they said redevelopment was gone? No, redevelopment was just taken away from the local jurisdictions, and the money for redevelopment was then handed up to the state now through infrastructure finance districts. So now the money is being handled up above. Because the higher and higher they go with the money and the control, the less they have to worry about people who are in city councils opposing them.
Yep.
Because if you want the money, they're going to do what they tell them to do. And that's what's happening. And that's what, you know, I'm fighting with these city council people and supervisor all the time. They're like, well, you know, it's the law. I mean, we have to. I mean, we want the money. Well, what are we going to do? Don't take it.
Yeah.
But you try to talk to these people and it's like, hello. So you know what? We got to get rid of the cog. We can't fight all this stuff. We have to get rid of these regional unelected bodies. And we can, because they're made up, which is why they want to institutionalize all of this stuff through creating an amendment to our Constitution and all of this stuff where they can create these levels upon levels of government that don't exist. So here's the high-speed rail system that they want to implement in connecting our mega regions together. Now, PDAs, priority development areas, these are areas that, again, in the Bay Area, the regional cogs get the money from the feds, billions of dollars, and then they control who gets the money. So the local jurisdictions, if they want to get some of their money for roads and highways and whatever, have to agree to whatever it is that the cogs want them to do. So the cogs have unbelievable amounts of power. And so in the Bay Area, the local jurisdictions have to define an area within their city called a PDA, a priority development area. And that is the area where they will be building high density, low income Section 8, stack and pack housing. And it typically has to be next to mass transit or some type of transit area. Although they've waived a lot of that too. So, you know, if you notice, some of the areas, let's see, you can't see it, but over here, in Half Moon Bay, they want to create stack and pack housing.
Oh, jeez.
No transit whatsoever. Doesn't make sense, but they want their money. So the local cities, and I've seen it, I go to these meetings, I go to the hearings, and I see the local city councils show up and say, well, it's not really for our community, but we want to play ball, we want some of that money, so okay. Sick. Now, what they do in those PDA areas is it is required as part of SB 375 to rezone. And zoning is a police power. They have to basically violate your private property rights in order to change them to something else. So the zoning is changed to allow for mixed multi-use, which is high-density housing with retail space underneath. Now, if it's not inside the PDA, guess what? You're not going to get permits. You're not going to be building, because they don't want growth and development outside the priority development areas. So you guys are all slated to be moved in closer to these priority development areas, and they do that in a number of ways. One of the ways is they shrink the urban growth boundary. I don't know if you guys have heard of this, but when they shrink, they draw an arbitrary line around the city, and then they say anything outside of this urban growth boundary, we don't want to be developed. We want to concentrate the development inside the urban growth boundary. So if you own property outside the urban growth boundary, guess what? You're going to lose value in your property. Now, that wasn't a taking, a physical eminent domain taking. You were compensated for it. You're still paying private property taxes on it, but you can't use it because it's outside the urban growth boundary. They will not create services for utility services out to you, etc. So they have ways of kind of cutting you off and reducing your private property values. Then what happens is they, you know, if you can't afford to pay your taxes or you don't want the property anymore because you can't sell it, because who's going to buy it when they can't build on it or do anything with it, then they scoop it up for pennies on the dollar and put it in one of these land mitigation banks that they use for the carbon credit trading scheme for the $1 trillion piggy bank. Somebody's going to be making a lot of money, and if your cog is sitting there spending taxpayer money buying up easements and property, they're setting themselves up to be using your land as a $1 million, $1 trillion piggy bank for carbon credit trading. So here's a lovely high-density human settlement that they have envisioned for us. 96 housing units per acre, no cars, all of you'll be getting around walking, biking. Your watershed and food shed will be within 10 miles, a ring around your property or the human settlement. So you guys have heard of eat local, grow local, and all this stuff. I mean, that's a new thing. They're trying to get us used to the fact that we're going to be living in these human settlements and that we should only be expecting to have food grown locally within like 10 miles or 100 miles or something like that of where our human settlements are. This is going to be a carrying capacity issue. So once the carrying capacity is maxed out on these human settlements, then what? What if you get another job? What if you move? Are you going to have to like show your papers, please? Now I want to move to another human settlement, and what's the carrying capacity there? I mean, there's some really sick things that you have to start thinking about when you start looking at the plan that these people have for us. And they have college level courses about this type of urban living. This is the National Geographic front page of December 2011, the city's solution to Earth's problems. And it was 2 whole pages. I only scanned one half of it because it was a whole other page of these cookie cutter, basically stack and pack housing in Seoul, Korea, and we wanted to show you how happy these people are. Identical apartments in a 25-story tower, each family adds humanizing touches.
Oh, jeez.
Don't they look happy? Now, okay, I'm not against high-density housing, okay? There's plenty of it. If people want to live in high-density housing, they want to live in apartment-style high-density housing, go live in San Francisco. Go live in Oakland. There's plenty of places. It's a free country. At least I thought it was. You have the choice to go do that. But we have the choice not to live like that. When I was 20, the thought of living in San Francisco, the thought of living in a high-rise with no privacy, right, with people upstairs, downstairs, you know, pool, party, you know, going out, walking, and that sounded great. But when you have a kid and you got to go to camp and ballet and groceries, and you want to send your kid outside to play and be able to watch him from your kitchen window, that doesn't happen. And you know, frankly, I mean, as a realtor, you know, I'm being in the East Bay, I see people that love this lifestyle, and as soon as they have kids, guess where they come? They come through the Caldecott Tunnel, like scared. Oh my God, there's life out here. But they have kids and they know you can't raise a kid. You can, but it's difficult, you know? It's very challenging in San Francisco or some of those areas, you know? It's just not the same. You know, so they come out this way because of their kids, and because of that, they look for an easier lifestyle where you can drive up, park your car, get your groceries, and you don't have to walk 5 blocks with your groceries and your kid and all of that, and then up 4 flights of stairs. So, you know, that's the thing, is this whole planning idea with these regional bodies and the one Bay Area and all these cookie cutter solutions is, there is no choice. They tell us it's all about choice. It's not about choice. The only choice they give us is high density housing. There is no single family residential homes that they're going to be allowed to create on the scale of demand in the future. Now, if you don't live in these lovely human settlements that I showed you with your humanizing touches, your property will be slated for taking in some way, form, or fashion, and creating 50% of the United States will be rewilded. That's their idea. Now, this map that you're looking at is the U.S. Wildlands map. It was called for in the UN Biodiversity Treaty. 50% of the United States was, through the United Nations Biodiversity Treaty, called for rewilding, which is why they want to remove our dams, it's why they're destroying roads, it's why they're cutting off access to recreational facilities, etc., and returning things to the wild. Now, Dr. Michael Kaufman was paid over $30 million to help create legislation, do a research and study to justify the rewilding project and the biodiversity for the United Nations, okay? This was before he knew any of this stuff. And when he started getting into it and he came up with these findings, he was horrified. And he knew that Congress was going to vote on this, and he brought this map to Congress 1 hour before they were to vote on it, showed them the map, and they voted against it. Otherwise, this would be a binding treaty that Congress would have voted on. Now, he was laughed at. Over the years, he's been laughed at because this was a conceptual map. This was his data. They gave him the data. They wanted him to prove what they were trying to do was correct and okay to us. When he went there with the data and being paid to do this, he suddenly began to wonder, and he was an environmentalist. He is an environmentalist. And the people that were directing him were not environmentalists. And we're not, he's a doctor in, I forget what, but basically, you know, this woke him up. And so he's been laughed at over the years because, you know, of course, this is just, you know, crazy talk. I mean, the red areas in this map are slated for no human use whatsoever. No humans are allowed. The red areas then are surrounded by yellow areas, which are the buffer zones with no human use. And then the green areas, which are very small and you can hardly see them, are where humans are going to be allowed to exist. Now, this is the wildlands map, conceptual map, and I found this year, doing my research, the real wildlands map. We are the first in the country to have an actual map.
Yeah.
And it's called for through AB 2785. So it's called the Calfiornia Habitat Connectivity Map, or project. And it was called for the creation of the first wildlands map for any state is California. And it was called for the creation through the Department of Transportation, Caltrans, and the California Department of Fish and Game. So these are not made up. Okay, I found the smoking gun. They are starting this. They are doing it. It is real. This is part of a 313-page document that calls for the taking of private property. It calls for destruction of roads. It calls for every metropolitan transportation organization, every metropolitan planning organization to use this in their planning. And they aren't telling you about it. Land is being purchased right and left, and for the last few years, you know, I was wondering why we are so broke in California. Why are our local cities and jurisdictions buying land? Why are they talking about open space? See that ridge line over there? We need to buy it and protect it. Like, really? We need to fix some potholes. Well, this is why. I told you, they are buying up this land in land trusts for land mitigation, carbon sequestration for the giant trillion-dollar piggy bank that's about to be unleashed on California, and we are the first in the pilot program, and then it's going to go throughout the country and the world. They want a world tax on carbon. Okay, this is a carbon credit trading scheme on a global level, and they are starting here in California. So they're buying up this land. No species left behind. This is out of their document. This is not me making this up. It says no species left behind, no land facet left behind. So what they do is they plotted out every piece of property in California, and the ones that are already owned by our government, they then figure out how they can link those together through private property to create these corridors, so that they can create overpasses, underpasses, and whatever for the wildlife, you know? And this is the map. Now, that map is obviously too small, so I printed it up, had it made into a poster, and I take it everywhere I go. Can you help me? Vanna? Land of the free, home of the brave, I love it. Okay, so, here, can you hold the other side and you guys can walk around and show and I'll talk about it, okay? So, this map is part of this document, and this map, what you're looking at right now, the green areas are the property in California that our government in some form or fashion already controls. through conservation easements, through BLM land, the Bureau of Land Management, through the Forest Service, whatever, okay? But it's already under control of the government or some land trust or some group that's part of this whole, scheme, okay? Now, in order to create these wildland corridors, they need to then acquire control of the properties in between them, okay? So the yellow and red areas are the areas that they will be taking through conservation easements or whatever method they're going to use, shrinking the urban growth boundaries, rezoning to open space, whatever, or buying up the land, whatever it is, in order to make that off limits and part of this grid. So there's a plan. This is the map. This is the end goal. This is what they want to get to. In this 313-page document, to me, it's the smoking gun. I took this map and I went to the state capitol and I walked door to door with the assembly and the senators. I didn't care whether it was left or right, because when I started talking to them about this map, in 5 minutes I could say, do you know about this map? Do you know what's happening here? Where's your district? Do you see where this property is? This says how much it's going to cost in terms of resources and money. It gives a grid. Less cost to more cost. The yellower it is, the less cost it's going to be for our government to take that land or acquire it. The more red it is, the more cost it is, because probably a lot of people live there. And to me, this is just unbelievable. I mean, I had senators and assembly people, Shannon Grove, Tim Donnelly, a bunch of different senators and assembly people going, oh my God, I've never seen this map. This is really alarming. What do we need to do? And I didn't have a plan. I'm like, I don't know. I thought you would know. I'm just here telling you about it. I'm like, don't you guys know what you're voting on? But apparently not. But this is the thing. So I encourage you to get a copy of this map. And if you would like a copy of this map or anything that I'm showing you today, I freely share all of my information and resources. I will gladly give you my copy of my binder and all the things that I keep in it. You can get a card from me and simply ask me, and I'll email it to, I can email it to Kim and she can give it to you guys either way. I do not want people to have to reinvent the wheel. I do not want you to have to go through and do what I've done research-wise. This is a multiplier effect. I need everybody and anybody doing what I'm doing right now and hitting the ground running and educating as many people as you can about what's happening. So thank you very much, you guys. And this map, I'm telling you, for 25, 30 bucks, you can get your local sign person, send them the copy of the file and tell them what page or whatever, have them print you up, whatever, what is this, 2x3 or whatever, roll it up, keep it in your car. I take it everywhere with me, because there's always an opportunity to be showing somebody. And your city council people and supervisors and your COG, they know about this. Well, maybe the city council and supervisors don't, but the COGs do. They know about the wildlands, and we need to be asking them about this map. See if you can find your property on there and whether it's scheduled to be taken, because to me that's the most horrific thing. That right there proves that they are planning to do this. It states it in the document. Here's another group, Greenbelt Alliance. You can go online, you can find, this is a NGO that basically targets private property for acquiring or attacks through lawsuits, etc. The Greenbelt Alliance has a whole bunch of maps about properties that are at risk of being developed. And if you're at risk of being developed and you are on this map, guess where they're going to spend their efforts? This is a coordinated attack. This isn't, like I said, there's a whole bunch of groups that have gotten together and are attacking us in a very systematic way. We need to know how that's done. And following the money is a great idea. One of the things that you guys need to do is you need to get on GuideStar.com, spend a couple of bucks, $250 for a month-long subscription, get a group of you together and start Googling, start looking up all of the tax returns for the local NGOs in your town that are doing all of this stuff. Find out